All right, so back in 2015, the entire world basically got together and created this massive to-do list for a better future. Well, today, we're going to grab a metaphorical red pen and grade one country's homework. We're diving into how a national development plan really stacks up against these huge global goals. And really, this is the big question, isn't it? Can a single country's plan actually make a real dent in the world's biggest problems? Things like poverty, climate change, the heavy hitters. Let's dig in and see if what looks good on paper actually translates to real action. Okay, so before we can start handing out grades, we've got to understand the assignment, right? Let's take a look at the master plan, that global checklist that pretty much every country is supposed to be working from.
So you can think of it as a shared blueprint. See, back in 2015, the United Nations put forward what they call the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. And look, these aren't just some vague, nice-to-have suggestions. No, they're a serious call to action for every single country to get to work on our biggest challenges with a deadline of 2030.
And it is an incredibly ambitious list. I mean, we're talking about 17 different goals here. They cover, well, pretty much everything, from the economy to the environment to social well-being. It's this huge, interconnected plan for making the world a better place. Now, we're not going to list all 17. We'd be here all day. But you get the picture. We're talking about the big stuff, the fundamentals: zero hunger, gender equality, quality education, and of course, climate action. This is the standard, the benchmark that everyone's progress is measured against. Okay, so that's the global plan. But how does it actually work in practice? Well, now we're going to zoom in on our case study for today, Turkey. We'll see exactly how they're trying to weave these big global goals into their own national strategy. And just so you know, everything we're talking about today is pulled from a 2024 academic study. Researchers did a real deep dive here, meticulously comparing Turkey's latest national development plan with those 17 global goals we just mentioned. And here's the key thing to remember. This isn't just some random document. The 12th Development Plan is Turkey's official roadmap for the next 5 years. So going back to our metaphor, this is basically the country's homework assignment, laying out how it plans to make life better for its own citizens while also chipping in on those global goals.
All right, so the big moment. How did the plan actually do? Let's open up that report card and see what the grades look like.
Let's start with the good news, shall we? The study found that the plan got some really high marks in a few key areas, especially when it came to social and economic goals. And you can see the connection so clearly here. Take SDG 1, no poverty. The plan lays out stronger social safety nets. Or look at SDG 4, quality education. It commits to free pre-primary school for all kids. And for SDG 8, decent work, the focus is on boosting incomes and helping out small and medium-sized businesses. I mean, these are super clear, actionable policies that line up just about perfectly with the global agenda. But, like any honest report card, it also points out the spots that, well, need a little improvement. The analysis found that while some goals got a lot of attention, others just weren't addressed with that same level of detail or, frankly, urgency. And this quote from the paper's conclusion really gets right to the heart of it. The biggest gaps, they were in the environmental goals. So things like climate action and protecting life below water. Yeah, they're mentioned, but the study pointed out they really need much clearer strategies on how they're going to be achieved, and, this is the big one, how they're going to be paid for. So, when you tally up all the scores, what's the final verdict? Let's take a look at the overall summary, the bottom line. It really is a tale of two halves. On one hand, you've got this really strong commitment to social justice and economic development. But on the other hand, there's a definite need to beef up those environmental strategies, to connect all 17 goals together more effectively, and to get better systems in place for tracking progress. You could say it's a solid B, but it's not quite an A+ yet. So you might be thinking, okay, but why does one country's development plan matter so much? Well, because this whole story is about so much more than just Turkey. Here's the real takeaway. What an analysis like this shows us is the absolutely massive challenge that every single country on the planet is facing right now. And that is, how in the world do you take a beautiful, ambitious global vision like the SDGs and actually translate it into real-world, on-the-ground, effective national policy? It's exactly where big ideas meet the nitty-gritty of reality. And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. We've just looked at the report card for one country, but what if we could grade the entire planet on its progress toward these goals? What would that collective report card look like? Now, that is something for all of us to think about.